From Jillaroo to African Addiction by Joyce Vernon. North Tamworth, 2340. Narrated by Chloe Schwank. The making of an Australian country girl. What made you so independent and resilient? A question so often asked of me. How fortunate was I to have a country upbringing, no place for sooks in my family, on a property on the northwestern plains of New South Wales, 700 kilometres from Sydney. Primary school was at home through Blackfriars correspondence, the equivalent of School of the Air in more recent times. Our schoolwork came in large yellow envelopes in our huge locked canvas mailbags. The school lessons were diligently delivered by our mailman Tommy twice a week, along with the delicious high-top loaves of bread, fresh and warm from the baker's oven. Of course, that was if the black soil road was dry. After completing the school tasks, the lessons were sent back to Sydney by the same method, then on the train. At times, we had our mother for teacher, but that was really only between governesses. We really liked to give the city governesses a hard time, and many came on Tuesday's train and left the following week. Maybe that had something to do with our joy at putting them on our favourite little horse, Trigger the Bolter. As the name suggests, pull the trigger and away he would go, galloping around and around the house paddock. What a delight it must have been to encounter lively country kids. This particular kid was the youngest in the family, so ended up home alone with mother for teacher in 5th class. Well, one day in April, there was a ruckus on the front veranda during school time. Mother ended up in tears, ran to the father in the cattle yards. Apparently, the little darling had been particularly nasty or disobedient. Ouch! The punishment? Expulsion from correspondence and had to ride a push bike on the black soil road 10 kilometres to town on Monday morning to the public primary school. Fortunately, there were only 10 days until the holidays. But then came the 22-hour train trips to Sydney for boarding school for the next 8 years. Quite a long journey for a 10-year-old. Others were jealous of our long trips on the Northwest Mail. It was known as the party train, as I was to find out later in my teens. The particular boarding school I went to certainly shaped my future. The learning philosophy, self-initiated, independent learning, suited some better than others. It is still the only school in Australia to follow the Dalton plan. I will never forget those last-minute dashes on a Monday night to get the assignments in on Tuesday morning. That was how I managed, and nothing changed when I was studying for my Bachelor of Teaching as a very mature-aged student. I knew exactly the time the last mailbox was cleared in my little city in a regional area. One would think I'd learn to do it a little earlier next time. However, my busy life always seemed to get in the way. Back to a life-threatening illness in 1966. I had 6 months away from boarding school. It was definitely one of the major turning points in my life. At the age of 14 years, I grew up. It wasn't a great idea to have an appendix rupture when you are 150 kilometres from the nearest decent-sized hospital and have to travel on gravel roads. That was nothing compared to the peritonitis that followed. After completing the higher school certificate, back to the bush I went, working for my father for 18 months as a Jillaroo. I had left school at just 18 years in December, and in January, my parents went to the beach for a well-earned break, for a month. There I was with a jackaroo, left with pages and pages of jobs to attend to, and a large grazing property to run. My father could not bear to see anyone idle. We worked from before daylight until after dark, didn't complete the list, but had a great time. The following year, 18 months after I left school, I married on my 20th birthday. I became we, and we became a great team. Goodness, there seems to be a recurring theme here, around 18. We lived in a remote part of southwest Queensland for some years. Down the track, the we became a family, with the addition of a much-wanted and waited-for little daughter. We were married for 44 years when my dear husband died of a rare cancer, followed by his 102-year-old mother and then my 93-year-old mother, all within 11 months. I went back to work a month after my husband died. All that was certainly character-building, and once again we became I, as by then the daughter was a grown, independent woman. Little was I to know what lay ahead. More challenges to throw in the mix. Maybe it was just karma for being nasty to our governesses when we were kids. I put the illnesses, surgeries, etc. in an imaginary pink floral box at the back of my brain and only opened it occasionally. Who wants to dwell on all those various things, and please never call me a survivor. To my way of thinking, if you are a survivor, you were once a victim. I just ran into a bit of bad luck, that's all. You may well ask, what filled my depleted energy and heart over many years? Voluntary work at a small bush school in a remote part of Zambia. The beautiful smiles of the children and the friendships made have been absolutely priceless. Addicted to southern parts of Africa, Zambia, Botswana and Zimbabwe? Yes, I will happily admit to that. How could I possibly isolate? What made me layer upon layer? Life is like a box of chocolates, said Forrest Gump. My life has been more like a colourful, delicious bag of licorice all sorts. The end.